Now picture this. You woke up for work, it's around 6:30 a.m. You need to get up, you need to get ready, you need to make yourself a breakfast and some coffee because you can't really function without those things. And you have to make sure you catch your bus at 7:30 a.m. to make it to work in time. And then you reach your office, and this is the same office you find yourself in and day out. And the look of it over time becomes slightly bothersome, but you don't really hate it. You talk to people at work about things that are not very interesting to you, but you have to hold a conversation to fit in. By the end of the day, you come back home and you still need to hit the gym and do some chores. You're not a billionaire, so there's no one else other than you to do all these things. After you're done with everything and had dinner, you're left with maybe a couple of hours to watch some movies and play a few games of a rage-inducing multiplayer game. Or just simply brain rot in bed, watch some TikToks and Instagram Reels. But at some point, you sit there and you catch yourself thinking, why do I feel so tired? Why does almost everything I do feel like walking up a hill? Well, the answer is simple. Your life is a struggle. Everything you do involves struggle in its essence. It feels draining because you are actively doing things that go against your actual desires. What those actual desires look like? Well, for example, you wake up so early to go to work and you'd rather stay in bed, or you'd rather not feel hungry, or feel like you're addicted to caffeine. But struggle presents itself in everyday things. You wake up hungry, there's a struggle between you and hunger. You can't function without coffee, that's a struggle between you and your caffeine addiction. You woke up early for work, that's a struggle between you and sleep. You need to go to work because otherwise you can't afford nice things that you buy with your salary. Well, that's a struggle between you and the need to sustain yourself under capitalism. While it is true that struggle manifests itself in every realm of human activity, it seems to reveal something larger about life. Why is it that every single thing you do is accompanied by struggle? Why is it that you feel the happiest once you had some juicy burger after hours of not eating? Why is it that you feel the most fulfilled after you're working your ass off to hit your quotas at work and earn yourself a promotion as a result? Well, it's not a coincidence or some accident, it is an actual feature of life. Could it mean that struggle is a precondition to feel happiness and fulfillment in their most intense and meaningful forms? Well, let's think about satisfaction and what satisfaction actually requires. To feel full from eating, you first must feel hunger. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel so good after eating because you were not hungry in the first place, and you wouldn't even be able to eat a lot. Again, because you're not hungry. Would you feel the need to go on dates and seek a relationship if you were not lonely? Or even a friendship, right? Would you seek a friendship if you were not lonely, if you didn't need a friend? Would a relationship feel as satisfying if everyone you ever talked to wanted you and desired you from the first second without you ever putting any effort into it? Would that feel meaningful, deserved, and make you actually happy? I understand that certain ideas nowadays, for example, the red pill ideas, force upon us a view that masculinity means women chase you, right? You're a man, you're a trophy, women's supposed to chase you. But that is a view that only some people hold. It doesn't mean that if some random guy on the internet believes in that, you also have to believe in that. Think about what actually makes you feel the happiest. As much as people want to believe that if they had everything granted to them, the way some hedge fund kid or some billionaires on Instagram seems to have it, they would be the happiest person alive. But that argument conveniently ignores the fact that those people have struggles of their own. I don't want to make you empathize with a billionaire, but simply because they have all the material conditions that others can only dream of, it does not free them from the struggle that is baked into human existence. I'm also not trying to make the same old point that money doesn't buy you happiness. It certainly do in some cases. I'm simply saying that money cannot buy you all the happiness that life offers, not in its most meaningful forms. And now you may wonder, okay, you're claiming that there is some mystic form of happiness that is unavailable to you even if you have all the money in the world. Well, what is it? And I will tell you, consider a relationship. Not just any relationship, not just a huge number of partners that you had throughout your life, which certainly in today's society is perceived as a checkpoint for men to achieve high status. More women you have, cooler you are, right? That's how it works nowadays. But a relationship with the right person is simply different. That relationship causes growth, spiritual development, and happiness that simply cannot be achieved with money. The emotions that the right person makes you feel cannot be replicated by another person, simply because they are not them. It's the person that makes those feelings available to you to experience. You may have already thought about this on your own. Think about the last time you were going through a breakup, and think about all the things that people were telling you to make you feel better. Don't worry, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Now be honest, how effective was that? Did it make you feel any better? And if not, was it because it was never about having any fish in that metaphysical sea, but a specific one? The one that made you feel what others couldn't. So, what makes you so convinced that money can buy any happiness, all of the happiness? If any person cannot make you feel the same happiness as that one special person did. And it is natural that within a relationship you will find yourself in situations where your partner causes you different emotions, not the best emotions sometimes. That could be pain that they cause, annoyance, anger. But those are not issues to run away from. Those are different forms of struggle that manifest itself in a relationship between two human beings. Because naturally, in a relationship, there are two different personalities, and you need to make this work. Differences cause struggle. It takes skill to not let those differences push you away from each other. Picture yourself an athlete who wants to become the best of the best, and how many hours he must spend perfecting his body and skills to achieve that greatness. Why should relationship be any different? A relationship, much like the skill that athlete is practicing, also needs development through struggle. Struggle is not the obstacle to happiness. It is a component in the recipe for it. Only because struggle exists can happiness be experienced in its most indescribable form. Now we come to the point where I have to be brutally honest with you and myself. Not every struggle is one that can be reflected upon and turned into a positive experience. Not all cases of human suffering can be filled with meaning or purpose. Some situations are simply too fucked. There simply could be no meaning behind any of it, other than fortune not being on your side. a very mean way of life telling you, tough luck, kid. Realization of that phenomenon is quite daunting. Now I would like you to picture a kid who is working in a Zara factory in Bangladesh. What he's working on there, a cheap Zara shirt, is nothing special to the most of us. You've seen those countless shirts go for a very low price. However, for him, that is the only way to exist in this life. To work in this factory for 5 cents a year, make a shirt that probably won't even be sold and will end up being thrown away into trash anyway. The reality is that this kid has to sacrifice education, basic moments in life that make up a person's childhood for the sake of survival. Most of us will never understand the level of his struggle, simply because life granted us conditions that prevented us from going through the same struggles this kid must go through every day. The difference between our struggle and his struggle is not only the intensity of it, it is the absence of relief. My struggle have temporary, imperfect, but very real solutions. The hunger gets satisfied. Just like I said, I will get that juicy burger and I will be very satisfied with myself. The workday ends, I will come home at some point and get to relax. The loneliness eventually breaks because you meet someone and you might even fall in love with them. His struggle does not end. It does not offer the same courtesy. The solutions that I take for granted were never built into his version of life. And that is not a matter of effort or will or character. It is purely a matter of the conditions chance decided to place him in. The contrast between my life and this kid's life is another version of struggle. A struggle between chances and different material conditions that directly shape what struggle even means. Because I didn't do anything to deserve a relatively good life in which I'm lucky enough to not be born with a disability, to have friends and family, to have a stable job and a career that I'm actually interested and capable of pursuing. It was all simply chance. The same chance that makes one person's life relatively easier to live can throw an infinite number of struggles at another. Because others must suffer, and you're simply an observer in that situation, someone who doesn't necessarily see or experience their day-to-day suffering, but still realizes it because you are human. Because you are human, you have the ability to feel, to understand, to empathize. This is yet another struggle, the struggle of awareness, of empathy. Your brain infers the pain and suffering these people are meant to go through. Without the ability to gain satisfaction from their struggle the way luckier ones can, their suffering remains unresolved. And you're aware of it. I want to make something clear because I feel like I mentioned suffering and struggle quite a few times throughout this video, and I use those words seemingly interchangeably. While I do think suffering carries a similar meaning to struggle, they are not interchangeable. As I mentioned earlier, struggle is something solvable. There is a solution. Suffering does not. And that kid that works in a Zara factory in Bangladesh, it's the clearest example of that distinction. The struggle becomes so intense, so unstoppable, that it grows into suffering. The same suffering, when it has no way to be expressed, to be let go, it turns inward and changes the person's entire perception of the world around him. A deep, consuming resentment takes hold, one that causes people to see all the negatives in the world and blurs out all the positives. It is hard to imagine how a person who spent all of his life surviving, can see any positives or develop any sort of love for humanity. The most fundamental struggle of human experience is not hunger or work or loneliness. It is the radical unfairness of chance itself. Although we do agree that it is ultimately unfair, hating the chance or life or struggle changes absolutely nothing. These things exist outside of you, indifferent to how you feel about them. They were before you, they're here now, and they will be there after us. The question was never whether struggle is fair. The question is who you choose to be inside of it. The suffering others experience must not preclude you from seeking the solution to your own struggle, your own suffering. Humans are born with consciousness, and they must bear the weight of the chance that life granted them. Just because someone suffers from the unfairness of chance does not mean that you shouldn't express your nature and seek the fulfillment and happiness in its most meaningful form.